Okay, I think we're recording now. Yeah, so I wanted to go over, what you need to do in order to prep for your listing appointment. And this will go back to even before you have the phone call. So, prepping for the phone call with the potential seller. So you'll want to make sure, it just depends on how you got the listing appointment or how the person reached out to you. And of course, they could reach out to you at any given moment, and then you're going to have to know what to say when that person calls you up randomly. Because I've had that happen to me where I was legit checking out at Bed Bath & Beyond, and a potential seller called me and wanted me to sell their home. So it happens to where you're just like out of the blue, because we're realtors and we're supposed to answer our phones. So we answer our phone, and lo and behold, it's a listing call. So you're supposed to have a listing call right there, smack dab in the middle of Bed Bath & Beyond. So that's pretty much what I did. Needless to say, we ended up meeting with her that night, got the listing, and sold it. So you can just make sure you're prepared for those things. I was not prepared, I gotta say. So, but who is, if they're standing in line at a Bed Bath & Beyond, like just chilling before we were actually going to go out of town that night. So we were not thinking of like getting a listing call at all. So you'll want to make sure that you have these things in your head before you even get a listing. So that way, when you get the opportunity, you're not stuck not knowing what to say. So after that happened to me, I was just like, oh crap, I need to prepare myself so the way if this happens to me next time, I'll know what to say to the seller. And of course, sometimes you're just completely caught off guard and things are happening around you. So, but if you look for something, you could probably find quite a few different types of seller counseling sheets to prepare yourself for interviewing with them for the first time that you're taking the call. Let me do a screen share and I'll show you an example. One Jake Hinder, I have talked about him a few times on my mentor calls, and but his stuff is really good. But I'm going to share that one. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to actually give it out. I'm going to have to make sure I can. But if I can, I'll post it up in the group for you guys. So let me present now. Okay, can you guys see? I guess you're seeing you on the screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so here's the hold on. Here's the seller counseling interview. Now his is really in depth because he has this whole second and almost a third sheet of questions and such to ask. Now it just depends on, I don't like that I can't see your faces anymore. I feel like I'm not talking to anybody at all. You're still there, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Why can't I see you?
I can see you and Jan on the side.
Oh, okay.
Here. No, it's just set up.
Yeah. Anyways, so, but yeah, his is really in depth. So you don't have to use a seller initial interview sheet that's this long, because especially if it's your first few times doing it, this is a lot. And even for me, this is a lot, because this could take a while to get this information, but you could get it if you wanted to. But the main points you want to get, so of course you're going to ask them their name, what their address is if you don't already have it, because obviously you're going to have to look up the property if you didn't already. So if you had looked up the property already on the phone, obviously don't ask them that. You can kind of do a little bit of research prior to the phone call. That way it sounds like you know the area and you're really on your game. David did that today with an impromptu listing appointment. He had the address, and so the seller started talking about, oh, hey, we had, number D that just sold, and David was like, oh yeah, that one, blah, blah, blah. So he acted like he knew all about it, which he did, but he had just looked it up. So the way it sounded like he knew exactly what the market was, which is what you want to do. So, of course, you're going to want to get their phone number and email and all of that, what the best method is to contact them. And then if you don't know who referred them, or if they're not a referral, trying to figure out how they heard about you. Like, did they hear about you from a postcard, Facebook, one of your sphere of influence, somebody that, just figure out how they got to you, right? So, and then you're going to want to find out all the details about the home, beds, baths, square footage. You're going to want to find out any upgrades that they did since they've been in the home, because that'll help you with trying to comp it out. Because if you don't know anything about the property and you look it up and you're like, oh, okay, this is just an old house, so you do the comps and then you go to the interview and they're like, wait, I did all of these upgrades, you didn't even comp those out right. So you're going to want to make sure you know that info before you go over there. We have a listing on DeFore in Redondo Beach, and we had asked that question because whenever I was looking up the photos, it had looked like, it was really outdated. And so I had asked him, I was like, did you do any upgrades? And then he just listed out this whole thing of what he's done to the property. And I was like, oh, okay, good. So you just want to make sure you know that, because it'll help with trying to determine what price you're coming in with. Because if you go in too low, they're probably going to be mad. And I wouldn't say too high. Everybody's always happy to get more money. So just ask them all of those questions, sprinkler system, anything like that, would be, relevant to the home. So, and then, you want to find out if there's any HOA dues or anything like that you need to know about. And then you can ask them what the best features of the home is, or like what their best part of the home is. So you can ask them that and they can tell you a few things. So that might help you get some more info on, maybe something that they wouldn't necessarily tell you, that will help you with the comps. So, and then of course you're going to get their timeline, where they're moving, what their plan is, if they're deciding to rent, or if they're trying to go to a different area. Of course, you're going to want to try to figure out if you can help them in that area too, because then you can get a really nice referral fee for that. So if they're moving away, don't think you're just going to discard them. Make sure you figure out if they need some help there. So sometimes people already are like, oh yeah, I have this friend, blah, 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 that's helping me. So make sure you know that, because maybe you can help them buy their next home too. So just make sure you're getting all of that info. And then where do they want to be for their target date? When do they need to have it sold by? So you'll need to know that, so that way you know when you need to prep it, get it on the market, and when they need to get out of there by. And you'll probably know during the conversation if they live there or if they're renting it out. Just make sure to know that. And then, of course, you're going to want to know when a good time it is for you to go out there. So, pick a few days and a few times to give them that works for you, that might work for them, because people usually do better whenever you're giving them choices, because then people are like, I don't know, I'm available whenever, and then you never set up anything. So make sure you do that. I've already told you to ask for upgrades. Of course, you're not going to go, verbatim. You're just going to want to make sure you hit, highlights of this sheet. We didn't ask anything about rating your home on a scale of 1 to 10. Any repairs that might need to be done, that's a good one to ask, because then you can kind of come prepped. We actually did that for the Ford property, right?
What's that?
Because we got
Repairs?
there. Yeah, we got there,
We
and
had a
we
handyman
actually
to fix
had
the
a
door.
yeah.
We had a handyman to fix the door during our appointment, already set up. We told the seller we were going to do it to make sure he was okay with it because he was in a time crunch. So we showed up to talk about listing paperwork and get listing paperwork signed. Handyman showed up half an hour later, completed the repairs while we were there. Painter showed up while we were there half an hour in to give a quote. And based on availability, because we already knew he was available the next day, we had the painter out the next day to paint the room that he needed painted. And then we got it on the market, or took photos on Sunday. That was all on a Wednesday, I think. Took photos Sunday, put it under contract on Tuesday. So that was a very quick turn for a seller that needed to buy a place down in San Diego, needed to be in escrow by Friday of that week to not lose the place in San Diego. So.
Oops. Sorry, I was trying to make it so the way I could still see your faces too while I'm presenting. You probably don't want to see your faces if you're anything like me, but I want to see your faces. So yeah, that would be helpful. You know, I can imagine sellers are pretty impressed whenever you show up with people to give them estimates already on their home. Of course, you got to make sure that's okay, because that might be off-putting to some people. But in this scenario, it really helped because he needed to get his property on the market. I've never moved so fast in my life for a listing to get it on the market, because we got it, you know, on there within 4 days.
The fastest we've ever done from listing contract being signed to under contract. So listing contract being signed to under contract was less than 7 days.
Yeah.
And it needed repairs.
It was like a tornado, and like a whirlwind.
We've never done that before, but it's one of those things. We've learned from past mistakes of losing a listing to not from not listening to the seller's urgency properly as far as how quick they want it on the market, and applying our typical standard of we want 2 weeks to make sure that everything's properly put together, and the website and the drone video and all that stuff. And we lost a seller because of it. Those, you know, $20,000+ commission check, because we didn't read them properly that they wanted to get to the market quicker. So we've learned from that mistake.
Yeah. So the mistake, you know, that we made is that, okay, we have, because, you know, David really loves the Excel spreadsheets, and so he'll do, you know, this pretty awesome like timeline of like, this is when we're going to prep and then stage and then take photos, and then this is when it, you know, anticipated will go on the market and how many days you're going to be in escrow, and so this is approximate date of, you know, when you can have your home sold by. And so, you know, we came in there and like, yep, this is our plan, and then we didn't pick up on the fact that maybe they needed to move a little bit quicker, and so, you know, we didn't end up getting the listing because we made that mistake. So it's really important to let the seller know that it's their choice and we can move based upon their schedule, because, you know, unfortunately, it's just a mindset thing. People are like, oh, well, that's your plan. That doesn't work for me. Forget you. But, you know, you got to let them know this is your choice. I can go by whatever you want me to. But of course, we tell them, you know, we're not going to have like full on staging and photos and all of this in place if you want to bring it up that quickly. So we literally just had photos, and but yeah, he had like painted and had the handyman come in already. But yeah, you can lose out on listings if you're not really listening and keying into what the seller is saying, because a lot of agents make that mistake of, you know, they come in, tell the owner what the plan is, and they don't get any feedback from the seller whatsoever. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons why people lose listings, is that they're just telling them what they're going to do. They're not, you know, seeking their input from it. So anyways, that was a long tangent, but I think it is really helpful for you guys to know that. And yeah, you can ask them how long they've been there, if they had received a recent appraisal or anything like that. And this one's a big one. Do you have an idea of what you think your home might sell for? Because, or you can ask them, what number do you have in mind? Do you have an idea of what, you know, where you want to price it at? The reason why you're doing this is that you're not, you know, starting the pricing strategy over the phone. You're just getting an idea of, yeah, I really need to sell for $750. I think it can sell for $750. At least you know where they are wanting to be, so that way when you go back and do your comps, you can get an idea of where the property actually falls. So that way you can kind of help set the seller's expectations whenever you're going in there. So that way, whenever you sit down with them, you're not losing the listing because, you're wanting to bring it at a way lower price. And of course, you can do the whole setting expectations, and then have that discussion, but at least you know where the seller's at and what they're thinking with the pricing. So that way you're not going in blind. And of course you can ask them how, and then they'll probably tell you, yeah, my neighbor's home just sold for blah, blah, blah. So they usually have something in mind, whether it's, relevant or not. Their mind is usually made up whenever it comes to pricing, unless you can talk them out of it. And then of course, knowing what their approximate mortgage balance is, how much they owe. And of course, if they have a second loan, and this is mainly for your net sheet. So that way you can see, finagling the numbers, if it works or not, and seeing how much they're going to make on their sale. Sometimes we'll even adjust it, because we try to get a 6% commission, if we can. But if we realize that they're not really going to net very much, we might go ahead and drop down our commission at the initial consult, and just say, hey, I realize, on this net sheet, you're not really going to make that much based upon the sale, if it sold for this amount, and what you're actually going to put in your pocket in the end. You can, adjust it there, because you may lose the listing anyway if you're coming in with a 6% commission and they're losing all of this money, and you didn't take that into account. I especially do that with my military clients, because of course they're usually not here that long, and not that I've had that many, but they're usually not here
Not that many sellers,
moving. But I have had one so far that I did that for.
Oh, that you dropped it for.
That I dropped it for.
Yeah.
Or two, maybe
Two,
one
I
or
think.
two. But anyways, so you'll want to do a net sheet, and then you can ask these other questions if you want. If necessary, you're prepared to bring money to closing, or if it's a possible short sale. So that just depends on, the seller. So, and then you can ask these other things. I mean, there's basically to get to know them a little bit better, but I feel like you're going to do that anyways, of building rapport whenever you're there at the house. So this is something I think I would prefer personally to go over in person, because usually there might be some times where it's kind of like, we've had times where, you're not fully just sitting at the table talking to them, and sometimes it'll be a little bit moments of silence, and then you can just bring up a little bit of small talk and find out these things. It just helps to make it especially like their favorite drink or something like that, because then you can, give that to them as a thank you.
Hey, Tasha, I have a question on the
Sure.
bring money to closing. Is that just to help with any closing costs, anything the buyer's pushing back on?
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever even asked that question.
That's if there's a shortage.
If there's a shortage?
Yeah, so let's say that between the sale price, the commission, all their associated closing fees and all that they're going to net out less than they owe on their mortgage, then they're short. And so to be able to close that, they have to have money.
They have to have something.
If they don't have money to be able to close the difference, they have to do a short sale through the bank, or they can't sell the home.
Okay.
Because you have to pay it all off at the end.
Yeah, I haven't dealt with that yet. So.
No, I mean, in this market, we don't tend to deal with it a lot, but yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And then you can definitely ask this question too. It's a good question. If they plan on interviewing other agents, that's always a good question to ask. So that way you know who your competition is, because you're going to want to know. Because if it's a really successful agent in the area, I mean, if that's your farm area, you're probably going to know. But if it's a listing that's outside of your normal area, you may not know who your competition is. So it's always good to ask them who if they're interviewing anybody else, and then basically researching that competition. Not that you're necessarily going to be like, they're horrible, I'm great, but you're going to be mainly bringing it up so that way you can say, I have sold, if you see that this person consistently sells under market value, you can bring that up and just say, I sell, above market value, or, you can tag onto their weaknesses and bring it up as a positive. Not that you're necessarily saying the negative of, what that specific person did, but you can bring it up as a positive and just say, my competition, sells homes in 40 days and I can do it in 30. So you see what I mean? Am I making any sense? Okay. So yeah, knowing your competition, knowing who the successful, like, they're going to know who the agent is in the area usually, that, especially if it's one specific agent or two specific agents, they're going to know who they are that sells the homes. And you don't want to go in there and be like, oh, who's that? Then they're going to say, oh, for sure, this person doesn't have any idea about this market because they don't even know who that person is. So, anyways, any questions on this before I jump over to the net sheet?
No.
Okay. All right. So you can use any sort of net sheet you want to, but the one that I use is from Old Republic Title.
Okay.
So you do seller, of course, first name, last name, what their address is. I guess I'll just do like a sample one. It kind of auto-populates some things for you. And then say 900K. So services to be performed all title, just primary escrow services. You would just check here if it's a short sale or if it's an REO. Is the seller a U.S. citizen? Is the seller principal residence? Yes. And then you can estimate what the closing date is there. So I'll just do like August 31st. And then you're not going to know anything about credit to buyer unless, they're coming up with something that they're going to give to the buyer for like replacing the carpets or something like that. And then you can explain to them here, is customary in this area for the seller to provide to the buyer a 1-year home warranty. And of course, that amount is just going to be an estimate, just depending on the home warranty company. But let's just say it's $600. That should pretty much cover almost any home warranty company. And then you're going to do your brokerage fee. Hold on one second. When we do this for the brokerage fee, do you even put that in?
There's no brokerage fee there.
Okay.
That's extra fees.
That's just the extra fees,
that's like
right?
if you wanted to charge your client a TC fee, which you could.
Okay.
TC fee or other brokerage
Because I'm like,
fees.
I don't think I've ever filled that in.
Yeah, we don't use that.
And then whatever they owe on their mortgage. What do we even owe on our mortgage? Do you know?
You're using ours?
Yeah.
$854.
Dang. Ouch.
Yeah, because we refinanced. Hence more money.
Yeah, we did. We refied a couple times. Took out a HELOC, so.
No HELOC. We did HELOC.
I thought we did.
Yeah, then we refied the HELOC.
Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, sorry. Side note.
That's
and then let's say we're doing 6% commission. If they have a secondary mortgage, I'll obviously put it in there. Interest rate. Oh, here's the interest rate. Let's say we're paying 3.25. I don't even know what our interest rate is. We're at 2.75 now? Mm-hmm. Freaking awesome. It's an awesome rate.
Right.
Okay. And then here.
This is where your shortage would come into play.
What?
If you run our numbers and you earn a 6% commission, we would need.
We're in the water. Yeah, we're.
Yes, because we've fully leveraged the house to invest the money.
Right.
So there's a perfect example of a shortage.
What do we pay in annual property taxes? So you're either going to put in a percentage or an
Use
amount.
10,000.
So we're just going to put in 10,000. And then July 1st. You know, if there's any homeowner dues, you can put that in there. We pay a crazy amount.
600.
600. Ugh. And then it's monthly. And then you can also add in other things. So what I like to do is put in the NHD, and it's usually about $100. You can add that on. And then, is there anything else that we add on?
HOA transfer, if there is one.
Oh yeah, let's do that too. And then HOA transfer fee. They're usually $250 to $400. It's a lot of money, but they have to pay that fee because anytime that you're in a new escrow, HOA fees always have to be ordered through escrow. So even if they're like, oh, I have the up-to-date ones, it still has to be ordered. So just let them know to anticipate that if they're in an HOA. If they're in a single family, there's no HOA attached. You don't have to worry about that. And then I put in my information. Or I can't even see my thing. And then calculate. And then what's cool about this is that you can print it out, you can export it to Excel, so that way you can kind of play with the numbers. So if you're coming with a laptop, this would be great because whenever you export it, if for whatever reason you come up with a different list price, you can put that in and then give them the new amount that they would be netting after they sell their house. So, and then this breaks it down, and you can email it to them too if you want to. Then this breaks it down for their current balance, and then adjusting it for their loan payoff and their property taxes. So that way they have an idea. And of course, tell them this is an estimate and will definitely change once you're actually in escrow and depending on what price you sell it for. But this is just a rough estimate of what they could expect at closing. So it's good to always have this with you whenever you're going to the listing appointment.
That's nice. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on that?
No questions. Yeah, that was helpful. Yeah.
Have you guys tried to do a net sheet before?
No.
I haven't.
Okay. So if you ever have, a seller that you're doing, a listing appointment for, we can always walk through that together. But I think this will also help having this. And then of course I could post an example of it too. So that way you're.
Yeah, that would be helpful, especially for like the added stuff.
Yeah.
The fields that you added.
Yeah. But
And that's,
yeah, pretty simple.
Is Old Republic, right?
What's that? Old Republic? Yeah.
Title? Okay.
Old Republic title. All right, we can move on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So from there, of course you're going to want to, research the property, research the area, know what the school ratings are, how close the schools are, if you don't know all of these things already. And of course, researching the market, what is sold in the past 3 to 6 months. And of course, you're going to do your CMA. And you're going to have that prepped and ready. However you want to do your CMA, whether it's through Cloud CMA, RPR, you can pull from one of those sources. And just make sure you have that with you. And everything that you print, make sure you print out 2 copies. So one for you and then one to leave behind for them. Because you're going to want to have that, to leave with them because they're going to have questions on it. So, yeah, make sure you print out your CMA, know all about the property and the differences between what their property will sell for and the differences between the properties that have sold. So, if a property next to them sold for like $1 million and they were completely upgraded and then theirs needs some work, you're obviously going to want to adjust for that. And then sometimes it comes down to little nitpicky items, such as like, we have granite and then they don't. And then, we have recessed lighting and blah, blah, blah. So just make sure you know all of those things prior to going about the subject property, at least, so that whenever you get there, you're just like, oh yeah, this one needs to be completely repainted. And then the other one had better upgrades. Like, just comparing the property and knowing the differences, so that way when they question you on it, you know why you would recommend, a higher or lower price based upon what the comps are, what you see with the comps. So, but yeah, know that. So have that, print that out for both you and the client. We already talked about knowing your competition. And then, of course, having all the documents ready. So, of course, I bring the seller net sheet, 2 copies of that. What you may want to do, especially if it's husband and wife, have one for each of them. For some reason, like each time we go, we only have one for them and then one for us, and it doesn't really work out too well, because then they're both trying to share the sheet, and especially if you're not giving it to the decision maker, then that doesn't really help. So make sure if it's a husband and wife, printing out the, extra copy maybe for both of them. The only one you don't have to do that for really is the listing agreement, because yeah, they can share that. But as far as what you're going to want to have, of course, you're going to have the seller net sheet, the listing documents. So let me go into, let me see if I'm in zip forms.
Real quick question.
Yeah.
Is Mary, do we have anyone going to see that property or no? 354 Kala?
She said she was going to see.
Okay, so I'm going to call the listing agent about it to get prep for the offer.
Oh, okay. Can you see if she's texted you?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Let me see if I'm going to pull up zip forms so that way I can show you guys all the forms to use. Who's prospecting for seller leads right now?
I know I need to.
Same.
We all want seller leads, so.
Definitely.
Seller leads are easier to work with because they know they want to sell, as opposed to buyers, and you don't have to do all of the legwork of like going to show like 20 million different homes. So yeah, so whenever you go into zip forms, this would be a good way for me to show you how you would do it. So when you go into zip forms, you're going to do new, and then you're going to do new listing. And then you're going to type in the property address. And then if it's a residential listing, you're going to want to click residential. Save. And then go into documents. Then all the forms are going to be here on the right-hand side. And then I know the acronyms. So residential listing agreement is RLA, and you're going to want to use the exclusive. I think you guys went to the contracts class with Debbie Penny, right? With the listing form? Okay. So yeah, you'll have your listing agreement, and I'm not necessarily going to go through the forms because that would take absolutely forever. But you're going to want to have the RLA. Actually, I do want to go over with you what I actually do there. So I'm not going to go over like the details of the form or anything, but of course you're going to want to have seller's name and stuff in here, And of course, when you call them, you're going to want to make sure you're entering in the correct owner's names, or if there's anybody that owns a property that's not listed on the realist tax, you'll probably want to know that. But of course, I fill this info out too with EXP's info. Where the heck is that? And then my info. Sorry, everybody else's. That's what I hate about Cara, is that everybody else's numbers pop up too that you've entered in before. And then of course you're going to. The cool thing about zip forms, on a side note, is you can go up here and say this was already in the MLS. This is good for whenever you're doing offers. You can put in the MLS listing ID and import it, and it'll auto-populate a lot of the info for you. So that's a little shortcut for whenever you're writing offers. But we're not doing that right now. We're doing listing. So, of course, you want to enter the information there. Of course, you want to put date in this info, of course, beginning to end. I usually do 6 months. Do 3 to 6 months at least for this. And then, of course, you're going to want to fill in this info. But what I don't do is number 2 in filling out the listing price, because you're not going to know necessarily the listing price whenever you're going to the listing appointment. So I always leave that blank, and then I type it in, or I write it in. So if we're listing for 900, I'll leave that blank, but you want to make sure you write it in there too. So you have to write out 900,000 if that's what you're listing for. But I just wanted to show you so that way you see that you have to actually write in an amount, especially if you're not putting in a listing price to begin with, which I never do. So I never have entered in a listing price, and any time that I did, it would come back to bite me in the butt, because then I'd have to cross it out and write in something different. So, and then don't listen to the people that tell you not to write in anything at all and have them sign the form. That, I think that's a big no-no, because I don't think WPenny likes that very much if you do that. So definitely don't do that. And then I don't put in commission either, because I want that to be negotiable. And if they come back and tell me a different amount, I don't want to be stuck with already have written something in here. So I just wait until I get to a listing appointment and put in, okay, great, we negotiated 5% commission. And then down here, you're going to want to put how much you're giving to the cooperating brokerage. So 2.5%. So we're just splitting it. As a listing agent, though, it's cool because you can be like, okay, well, this can be a lot of work for me. So it's going to need a lot of prep and staging and all of that I'm going to have to do. So I'm just going to do 2% to the buyer's side because I'm doing all this extra work. And so if the seller agrees with that, they shouldn't care because they're paying the same amount anyways. So I don't usually explain it. I'm just like, here's what the buyer's side is getting. And they're just like, okay, sign away. So anyways, honestly, for the items excluded and included, sometimes I'll put that down there, especially if there's something I need to remember. But whenever you get an offer from a client or from a buyer anyways, that's going to always have to be included, to counter that item out if that's what the seller wants to do. So it almost doesn't even matter if it goes in the MLS. I mean, you would write it down here just to make sure you remember what they want to include and exclude. But, a lot of people are putting in items on the MLS for exclude and include. Honestly, like those things are negotiable. So sometimes sellers are willing to give up things that, if it's for a certain price, people will let go of it, most likely, unless it's like a family heirloom. But yeah, I mean, I fill in everything else though, because I'm assuming they want me to do full-on marketing and all of that, which this, incorporates the photographs and all of that. So, but I just wanted to go over those 2 items because that's one of the things that Mandy was asking me about if I fill that in. So I never fill in the listing price and never fill in the commission because those things can change. So.
Now, Tasha, do you take a paper copy of the whole listing agreement, or you
Yeah,
take an
I do.
iPad, or
Yeah, I take a paper copy.
okay?
Hmm.
So
I
then,
always take a paper copy because if they're ready to go, I'm not coming back. I'm not leaving that place without a signed listing agreement.
and
So
then you take it back in and scan it into zip form.
yeah,
Like, how does that work once you have
yeah,
a paper copy to
I
import it
bring
back?
it. Yeah, I bring it back home and I scan it, and then
Okay.
yeah, and then I'll usually email them a copy and say thank you for allowing us to help you sell your home. So
Okay.
it's just another opportunity for me to email them. But remember, they already have a copy of the listing agreement. They just don't have a copy yet of the signed one. But the rule is that they have to have a copy of whatever they're signing. So at
Okay.
least you're providing a copy of it. It doesn't
Okay.
necessarily have to be the signed copy, but I want them to feel like I'm being 100% transparent with them. So I will also email them the copy. So.
Okay.
And then now in the day and age of COVID, we have to have the listing agreement coronavirus addendum. So you're
Hey,
gonna,
Tasha, just a quick question for the
yeah.
email. So when you email them the copy, do you just like photocopy it or do you send it to them unsigned in here?
You mean through email?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a scanner
Okay.
actually. So I have a printer that has a scanner on it, so where I put the papers on top and it scans it through.
Okay.
So it'll scan right into my husband's computer. And so it'll scan into there, and then I put it in a folder. And so that's what I would recommend doing too, putting on your computer somewhere so that we have client files. And then I just take it from there and put it in an email and send it to them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then you upload it into SkySlope from
Yeah.
being scanned.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And you're supposed to do it within 2 business days. So I try to make that happen. Sometimes I forget. Um, But also big important thing whenever it comes to the listing agreement, make sure you're prepping it and putting it and printing out a copy of the seller to exclude from the MLS, because otherwise you're going to have to put that in within 2 business days. And then, of course, you got to think about the coming soon paperwork too. But this is aside from that, because if you do not have them sign this form, if you don't put it in within 2 business days, then you are in violation of the rules. So you must do this. And then once you fill this out, you're gonna have to send it to Debbie Penny to sign. Of course, it's ca.sign@exprealty.net. It changes all the time. So if people are watching this video in the future, it may not be the same. But as of right now, 7/24/2020, that's what you're supposed to do. But you're going to want to do that. This is one of the first things you'll want to do, aside from even uploading the listing agreement. Take this home, scan it, whatever you can do to get it into your computer right away. Send it off to Debbie Penny to get signed. They usually sign like that. Like they'll seriously sign stuff at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Our brokers are ridiculous. They're awesome. But you'll want to do that, and then you have to go to, let's see if I can log into my MLS, or I might be logged in already. Oh, nope. I'm going to go log in so that way I can show you guys where to upload this form. Hitting how they make you wait. So once you're in the system, you're going to want to scroll down, and then you're going to want to come over here to compliance and listing exclusion. And then, there's a whole process. When the listing agreement began, expiration, the property address, city, your name, first and last name, login ID, email address, and whenever you go to next, that's when you'll upload that form, and you're going to want to make sure it's the signed form by your broker. So, but yeah, it's really important because if you don't do this, you get an MLS violation. But, any questions?
What is this form pertain to?
The listing agreement. So,
Oh.
yeah. So there's a part of the listing agreement that has the seller to exclude from the MLS, and that's what this form is. So if you're not entering in the property right away, which would be within 2 business days, which most people aren't because there's usually some prep work that needs to be done. If you're not entering in right away, then you need this form signed, like ASAP. This isn't something that you can wait on. So at the listing appointment, you're having this signed, you're sending it to Debbie Penny to get signed, and you're uploading it within the MLS. So
the contract.
This form.
Okay.
Yeah. You're just uploading this form into the MLS. And that's just because they make us put it in within 2 business days. So, and you're going to want to explain that to your client too, and just be like, hey, the rules say I have to upload your property into the MLS within 2 business days. So, and usually people need about a few weeks to get prepped because then they need to paint or, you know, have their carpets cleaned and then declutter and then clean it all up, and then you're going to have to stage it and then take photos. So usually it takes a couple weeks to get a property on the market. So that's why you want this form, so that way that gives you a chance to do that. So I always print it out because I never know if, like even with the one that I brought to market in 4 days, I still had them sign it because it's more than 2 days, so I have to.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, of course, you're going to print out the listing agreement coronavirus addendum. This has to accompany all listing agreements. It's required. So make sure you print out that. And of course, you're going to explain to them about what this form is about. It's basically them allowing people to come in and see their property. So print one of those out. And then I'm basically going through the forms that SkySlope makes you put in whenever you have a listing. So that, of course, it could change, but as of right now, you know, these are the forms I'm going through that they make you upload into SkySlope. And then the coming soon form, though, is not required to be uploaded. You just have to have it signed by the seller. But honestly, it doesn't even go anywhere. It's just, it just needs to be signed is the rule. So, and then make sure you know what the coming soon rules are. If you don't know, whenever you go to the MLS page, there's a clear cooperation policy. Make sure you read about that policy so that way you know what the rules are for advertising and such. So, like if you have a property you haven't put it into the MLS yet, but you're advertising it, that's a big no-no. Like you need to put it into the MLS is coming soon if you're going to advertise it, or it needs to go active. All right. And then you're going to need the MCA, which is the Market Conditions Advisory. So print one of those out. And then you're going to need a Disclosure Information Advisory, a DIA. And then you're going to want to print that out. Market conditions is basically explaining, you know, the buyer could place a non-contingent offer, like what an appraisal and loan and inspection contingency are, and they can receive multiple offers, and that they're the ones that make the decision, not you. So that's the big thing that I point out to them. And it's capitalized on this form. So apparently I'm not the only one that thinks that it's important to point that out. And then on the disclosure information advisory, I know some agents like to bring the disclosures with them to the listing appointment. I find that our listing appointments are super long. They can be an hour, hour and a half to 2 hours sometimes. And so by the time you get through all of that, your client and you are ready to get on with their lives and kind of, you know, they're ready for you to leave, you're ready to leave. So by that point, I'm not going to sit down and spend another hour trying to fill out seller disclosures. I know Debbie Penny said that she does that. I'm like, how quick are her listing appointments? 15 minutes? Because I don't know how anybody gets through disclosures in the first meeting with the seller. And I don't like to do it. So I don't do it until we have an accepted offer. You could do it in the phase where they're prepping their listing, but then they're usually focused on prepping the listing. They're not wanting to focus on seller disclosures. But once they get an offer, they're thinking about it again. So that's whenever I like to bring the disclosures up. But I do give them this form, the disclosure information advisory, because it's telling them how to fill out the disclosures, what to put on the disclosures, what not to put on the disclosures. This is a good form for them to reference for whenever they're filling out the disclosures. Of course, you should be there with them, but I encourage them to read this so that way they know at least something about disclosures and how to fill them out. And then, let's see. Just have a folder or something to put all the documents in it. I'm going to show you what folder I use. So you can buy these folders in EXP Enterprise in the marketplace or the market center. I think this is market center, right?
Yeah.
You can buy these there, and then it's cool because it has a little spot for your card that you can put right there. So I put all of the documents in here and leave this with the client because it's cheap. It's a cheap thing to do, and then it's really cool because one of my clients, like every time I see him, he has this folder, and I'm like, this is awesome. So I put everything in there, you know, all their copies and everything with the net sheet, CMA, listing agreement, all of that. Let's see, did I miss anything as far as forms? I don't think so. Excuse me. And then know how you're going to market their property too. So have some sort of strategy and have just know what your value is whenever you're on this listing presentation. Even if it is your first one, you want to be like, well, this is my first one, so I'm really excited. You know, just be prepared for objections as well. Let's see, no, that's not it. So I have this execution of marketing plan that I give to them. And I'm not going to go down the line and explain. This is an old one because it says Sunoco. That's my old brokerage. But this is just an example, so the way you can go off of it. But this is basically saying what I'll do pre-marketing and then what I'm going to do to market their property. And pretty much you're going to repeat these things every week, the things that are repeatable. Obviously, you're not going to take photos every week. But the things that are repeatable, and I've edited this since then, but I don't know why I pulled this one up, but this is a good one anyways for you to go off of, so I can give you a template so that way you can modify it on your own. But just know what you're going to do for the property. That you're going to take professional photos, you're going to stage, you're going to property boost it on Facebook to bring it to the most buyers possible, so that because 70% of buyers are online these days, probably even more now during COVID. So you're just going to want to make sure you know what your marketing plan and what your unique selling proposition is. So what you want to have prepared is, even if you're new to the business, like I was saying earlier, you're going to want to know what value you bring by them hiring you. So know what that is. I can't tell you what your unique selling proposition is. Ours is that we sell each one of our properties, never fail to sell a property that, a listing that we have. And that we don't take listings just for the sake of having a listing. So just know what yours is, because it's going to help for like, okay, why should I hire you instead of Joe Schmo over there? So just know that answer whenever they ask you, and know what marketing plan you're going to do. And you can leave this behind with them too, so that way they see what you do. You can also bring samples of the type of flyers, and if you're doing postcards, whatever type of marketing that you're going to do for them, you can always bring an example with you. So that might help. I've done that in the past. I don't do that with each one, but I've done that in the past in bringing examples of what I do and what my marketing looks like. And whenever you're explaining what your marketing is too, make sure you're not saying, okay, I'm going to put it into the MLS. I'm going to put it on Facebook. I'm going to put it on all social media. Why are you doing that? Well, you're doing that to bring the most amount of buyers to their listing, so that way they can net more money, and so that way they can walk away from the house with more money in their pocket. But just make sure you're telling them the why of all of these things, so that way they understand, because they don't do this every day. You do it every day. So just make sure that you're telling them why you do that marketing. We're gonna do virtual showings because everybody's at home now, so most people want to get out of the house. So we're going to make sure that everybody that's sitting at the computer, we're marketing it to them that's in this area. And then knowing who you're marketing to. So of course, you got to take into account fair housing, but if you're marketing to just know who your audience is for the house. Like, know what type of person that house attracts. So if it attracts millennials or an older generation, you're obviously going to want to do two separate things for that. So it's helpful to know that. But I mean, most properties you're probably going to want to do like some form of internet advertising. But it's just going to depend on, where the property is, what type of demographic you're serving. So it depends on a lot of factors, and what you can actually do too for marketing, because even though you'll probably get leads off of it, it's still coming out of your pocket versus the seller's pocket. And then one thing I didn't cover actually was staging. So staging usually comes out of the seller's pocket. So you might want to put that into the net sheet too. I have done majority of my listings without doing any staging. I've only done one or two actual staging, like where a company comes in and puts all of their furniture in the house. For the most part, my clients have just used their furniture and staged it with their stuff. And sometimes they'll just buy a few things and they're decluttering and all of that. And that brings me to EXP Marketplace has the a staging checklist. Let's see. So I give this to them too. But I usually email it to them. I don't know why I don't print it out. I think maybe I forget every time. But you can go into the design center. I don't even know what it's called. But go in there and you can print one of these out, and you can put your info on it too. So, but it just gives them an idea of what to do. But I think the reason why I email it to them instead is because I don't know if they're gonna, if they're hiring me or not. So I'm like, I'm not gonna tell you all the things you need to do prior to hiring me. So you can kind of walk yourself into a corner too whenever you're walking around with the client, because they're probably going to start asking you, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I change this out? Should I replace this? Should I replace that? So just make sure you're not walking yourself into a corner with that, because it's mainly just for you to walk around. And whatever you do, take photos so that way you can reference it. So if you get the listing and you have to put it into the MLS, you're not having to text the owner and call the owner and be like, hey, does your place have yada yada in it? So it helps you remember what the home actually had. Because I know there's plenty of times where I'm like, wait, did it have this? So we take photos now as we're going around to the around looking at the property. Because that's usually one of the first things you do when you get to a listing appointment is have them show you around. And so they'll be talking to you about, you know, what upgrades they did to the home. And that's when we take the photos so that way we can reference those. And then I make sure to tell them like, hey, do you mind if I take photos? Because I just want to be able to reference this. So it's just for me only. And then they're fine with it. Because, you know, especially if their house is a mess or something, they don't want you to they're probably a little like, I don't know about you take photos, but once we say like, hey, it's just for our reference, and they're more comfortable with it. But yeah, come prepared for objections because you're probably going to get some objections while you're there. So I know there are a lot of good scripts out there. Ricky Caruth, Kevin Ward, like there's so many scripts out there you can look at for seller objections. So make sure you're prepared with that before you go and know what those are and know how to combat those. So, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. I can't think of anything I didn't cover. So.
Yeah, this was really helpful.
Good. Trying to think if there's anything else. I'll put there's another marketing plan you can do, or 28 days guaranteed selling system action plan.
Yeah, any of the stuff that you can send would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll put it in the workplace group. But yeah, I didn't know any of this, so this is all come from just trial and error, honestly, and trying to figure out our process. I know some people do like pre-listing packets. You can do those if you want to. I have never done them, but that doesn't mean that they don't work. I've never been organized enough to do that. So I know in the past people used to drop them off at people's doors. I think it's better just to email them these days because most people don't want something to handheld. They want something on their computer or their phone. So you can email them a video. You can make like a YouTube video, like 5 reasons why you should hire me. And then you can show like snippets of the marketing that you've done and all that. I'm like, by the way, write this down. This is a good idea. That's a really good idea, actually. Yeah, talk about that. Show what you've done in the past. You can show like the photos and the videos and homes you've sold. Even if you've represented buyers, those are still homes you've sold. So they don't have to know that those aren't homes you've actually sold as a listing agent. Because you can say you sold it, doesn't mean that you represented the listing or the seller on the listing. So but yeah, I'm like that is a really good idea. I'm like, I need to do that actually. So any questions on anything?
No, I'm actually just taking some notes and stuff down.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't think I have any questions either.
Okay. Do you think listings is something that eventually you guys want to get into doing?
Yeah, most definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, they're fun. Buyers are fun too, but sometimes they're a lot more work than listings are. I mean, with listings, you have to do a lot of like coordination and have contractors in your pocket and basically having all these people on speed dial so that way if repairs and all of that come up, you have to like coordinate those. And especially if it's a vacant property, then you're gonna have to be there. But it's not as much work as being a buyer's agent, because I've had buyers where I show them houses for 9 months to a year. And so that is a lot of work whenever you're thinking about the paycheck, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I prefer listings now, but I am not going to turn down business. So I'm still working with my buyers. So I've always been buyer heavy. What kind of listings in the future you want to go for, Diatri?
I haven't really even thought about it, to be honest with you.
No?
I mean, whoever want to sell a house, that's all that matters to me.
Right? Sell a house, buy a house.
I mean, it doesn't matter right now. As long as I start to get some experience, then I can probably choose, what avenue I really want to go down. But as of right now, I
Start with like FSBOs and expireds, because you don't necessarily have to get info off of, like, you don't have to necessarily pay for the info.
But that's a good start. Is to pull some for sale by owners,
What's that?
pull some FSBOs,
Yeah. Like
contact them.
you were telling me yesterday that you're gonna go
Uh-huh.
after that one house.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, what site would you use to go after FSBOs? 'Cause I know it's a
Zillow.
few.
Zillow.
Zillow.
Yep.
Free data.
Zillow lead.
Yep. Zillow.
You said Zillow and who? Free data?
Well, no, it's saying it's free data,
Okay. Oh,
right?
okay.
Sellers are telling you they want to sell. They're posting
They're
it up
raising
there
their hand. They're like,
with
"Hi, I
their
want to
number,
sell."
with their
And
number
then
to call them.
expireds, like, they're already saying they want to sell. It just didn't work out with
It
previous.
just didn't work out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can tell them how you're better.
Okay.
What you're going to do to get their house sold.
Okay.
But, what's his name? The heck is the dude's name that I did the system? Jim. Why am I not remembering? But he has this unique system. This guy that I did training with and paid for, like, one-on-one or a group coaching thing with, is doing, like, drop letters to sellers. It's a lot of work though. It's like using drop letters and send out cards and doing that whole thing. But you got to dedicate at least 3 to 4 hours a day to doing that.
To send in, like, you said, like, postcards and drop letters?
So it's send out cards.
Okay.
So it's basically like, so you're looking up expireds, right? So most people are calling them. This system is you're dropping off letters at their house, like you're physically dropping off a letter.
Okay.
And then you're also in the letter saying that you're going to send them a package in the mail. And that package is the send out card with a postcard and brownies or something.
Oh,
and the main reason why you do that is so that way you stand out. So,
okay.
Yeah. That's one method. Yeah, Jim McCord is his name.
Jim McCord.
Jim McCord. He's not EXP. Let's see if I can find him. Where is my Facebook? By the way, if you guys have Facebook, look me up on there.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, my Facebook wasn't open because I didn't want to receive notifications while I was doing the call. So, I can't remember what thing it was. Yeah, Jim McCord. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe go visit his website because I can't remember what.
I found him.
You did? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But he has this book, A Revolution in Real Estate Sales. It used to be called something different. I forget what it used to be called. But I'd recommend reading that, actually. It's a really short book, really easy to read. You can probably read it in 30 minutes, Diatri. I know how much you love reading books. But yeah, really easy book to read. So I think you can buy it for like $5.
Yeah, I just bought it right
Sorry,
now.
what was the title of it?
You just bought it?
Yeah,
Of course you did.
I just bought it off of Amazon.
You're awesome. What'd you say, Jen?
I said, what was the title of it?
A Revolution in Real Estate Sales. Anyways, I know we've gone over our time, but
Okay.
anyways, I think this is a good call. Thank you guys for being on the call.
Yeah, thanks,
Man.
Tasha.
Happy to be back.
Good to
It's
see
been
you,
a while.
Diatri.
It's been a
What's that?
while.
Yeah, it's been a
It's been a
while.
while, yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't
Glad
feel
to
like
be
it because
back.
I saw you yesterday. So
I know.
he went to the home inspection. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah. So, but anyways, good to see you guys, and I hope you both have a wonderful weekend.
You
Yes,
too.
you too. You and David. Y'all have a good weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a
Talk
good
to you
weekend.
later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.